Chosen one, there is something you need to hear today, and I want you to listen carefully, not as someone scrolling through content, not as someone half present with one eye on something else, but as someone who has been chosen. Because if you've been drawn to this message, if something inside you said yes when you saw these words, that was not an accident, that was a signal, and that signal is the very thing that puts you in danger. Let me explain what I mean. Most people move through Monday the same way they've moved through every Monday before it. The alarm goes off, they groan, they reach for their phone before their feet even touch the floor. They scroll, they sigh, they drag themselves into the machinery of the week and let it carry them forward without asking even once, why am I doing this? What am I actually moving toward? Monday is not just a day of the week. For those who are asleep, it is a reset button that brings them back to the beginning of the same loop they've been running for years. For those who are awake, for the chosen ones, Monday is something entirely different. It is a threshold, and crossing a threshold is never without risk. You have to understand what it means to be chosen. The word has been watered down. It gets thrown around in motivational videos and self-help books until it loses its weight. But I am not using it lightly. Being chosen does not mean you were selected by some cosmic lottery to receive blessings while others suffer. It means you carry something that most people have been conditioned to suppress. It means you were born with, or somewhere along the way developed, a sensitivity to what is real, what is possible, and what is at stake. It means you feel things more deeply. You see the gap between what the world is and what it could be, and that gap bothers you in a way that it doesn't bother most people. That awareness is your gift. And it is also precisely what makes you dangerous to the systems that depend on your compliance, and what makes you vulnerable in ways you may not have fully reckoned with yet. Here is the danger, and I want you to sit with it. Every Monday, you wake up in a world that was not designed for people like you. It was designed for people who follow instructions, who consume what they're told to consume, who measure their worth in metrics set by someone else. Productivity scores, follow accounts, salary brackets, approval from people they don't even respect. The system works beautifully for keeping ordinary people in ordinary patterns. But for someone like you, someone who senses there is more, the system doesn't just ignore you, it actively works against you. Not out of malice, systems don't have malice, but out of momentum. The machinery keeps turning, and if you are not moving with it, the gears will grind against you. Monday is when that grinding is loudest. Think about what happens to you on Monday morning if you are honest about it. There is a kind of heaviness, isn't there? Not laziness, people will try to call it that, and you may have internalized that accusation. But it isn't laziness, it is resistance. Your body and your deeper mind know that what you are walking into does not align with who you actually are. That resistance is not weakness, that resistance is intelligence. It is your soul sending up a flare saying, this is not the direction, this is not the path, this is not why you are here. And the danger is that most chosen ones spend their entire lives overriding that flare. They call it being responsible, they call it adulting, they call it reality. And slowly, quietly, over years and decades, the flare gets harder to see, the signal gets weaker. And one day they look up and the feeling is gone, and they mistake the absence of anguish for peace, when really what has happened is much more devastating. They have stopped being who they were. That is the first danger of Monday, the danger of slow erasure. But there is a second danger, and this one is more acute. This one can happen in a single week, a single day, a single moment of weakness. And it is this. The chosen one, the person who carries that awareness and that sensitivity, is also the person most vulnerable to being crushed by comparison, by the gap between vision and reality, by the weight of being almost there but not quite, by the particular agony of knowing what you're capable of while still being trapped in circumstances that don't reflect it. On Monday, the world shows you its highlight reel, social media resets. People post their weekend achievements, their fitness milestones, their business wins, their beautiful lives. And if you are a person with a vision, if you are someone who knows they are meant for more, that parade of other people's progress can be devastating in a way it simply isn't for someone without ambition. The person without a dream scrolls and feels mild envy and moves on. The person with a dream scrolls and feels like a failure, feels like evidence that they are not who they thought they were, feels the gap between where they are and where they are supposed to be like a physical wound. This is the trap set specifically for chosen ones on Monday morning. It is a trap baited with comparison, and it works because your standards are high. Your standards are high because your awareness is high. Your awareness is high because you are not like most people. And the very quality that makes you extraordinary is the quality being used against you. I need you to hear this. Your vision is not evidence that you are behind. Your vision is evidence that you are ahead. The fact that you can see the destination clearly enough to feel the distance from it is not a curse. It is the very faculty that will eventually get you there. Most people cannot even see where they are going. They are not suffering the gap between vision and reality because they have no vision. You suffer that gap because you are awake, and being awake hurts in a way that sleeping never does. But you would not trade it. You know you would not trade it. Even on your worst Monday, even when everything feels heavy and impossible and wrong, you would not choose to stop seeing what you see, because seeing is who you are, and losing that would not be peace, it would be death. The third danger is perhaps the most subtle, and it is the one that has quietly undone more chosen ones than anything else. It is the danger of isolation, of believing on some fundamental level that no one around you truly understands what you carry, that the people in your life, even the ones who love you, cannot fully meet you in the place where your deepest self lives. And this is often true, not because you are better than them, but because you are different, and different in this specific way, carrying awareness you didn't ask for. Feeling called towards something you cannot always name is a lonely way to be. Monday amplifies that loneliness, because Monday is when everyone else seems to know their role in the play and you are standing off stage, script in hand, wondering why none of the words feel like yours. That isolation will drive you, if you are not careful, into one of two equally dangerous responses. The first is withdrawal. You will start to shrink. You will stop sharing your ideas because they've been misunderstood before. You will stop talking about your vision because it's been met with skepticism or practical concern or the particular cruelty of someone well-meaning who loves you but cannot hold the size of what you're dreaming. You will learn to make yourself smaller in rooms where your full size feels like too much. And every time you shrink, a little more of the chosen one in you dims. The second response is arrogance. You will decide that if no one can understand you, then you are simply above them. You will use your sensitivity as evidence of superiority rather than difference. You will build walls disguised as standards. You will call loneliness discernment and call isolation elevation, and one day you will look up and realize you have no real relationships, no genuine community, no one who actually knows you, just an audience. And an audience cannot hold you, an audience cannot challenge you, an audience cannot help you grow. An audience can only watch and eventually lose interest and move on. The path between those two dangers is narrow, and it requires something most chosen ones struggle with: vulnerability. Real, deliberate, terrifying vulnerability. The willingness to be known in your confusion, not just in your clarity. The willingness to say, "I don't have this figured out," to someone who might judge you for it. The willingness to stay in the room even when the room doesn't fully understand you, because staying is how understanding eventually gets built. Monday is a test of whether you will retreat or whether you will stay present. Stay real, stay in contact with the world even when the world feels like it was built for someone else. Now I want to talk about what Monday actually is in the life of a chosen one when you approach it correctly, when you understand the danger and refuse to be taken by it. Monday is not the enemy. Monday is the arena. Every week you are dropped back into it, and every week you have a choice about how you enter. You can enter as someone who is being dragged through it, fighting the current, spending energy on resistance rather than direction. Or you can enter as someone who chose this arena deliberately, who knows that the grinding, the difficulty, the friction, the gap between where you are and where you are going, all of it is the price of the particular life you are building. Not a punishment, a price, willingly paid. The chosen ones who survive Monday, who thrive through it, are not the ones who find it easy. They are the ones who have made peace with the fact that it will not be easy and decided to show up anyway. They have learned to separate the feeling of difficulty from the meaning of difficulty. Difficulty does not mean you are on the wrong path. Difficulty often means exactly the opposite. The easy path, the one that feels smooth and comfortable and doesn't ask anything of you, that path leads nowhere your soul wants to go. The hard path, the one that requires you to override your comfort and your fear and your comparison and your isolation and your slow erasure, that path is where you find out who you actually are. Let me tell you what the chosen ones who have gone before you discovered. They discovered that the danger of Monday is not external. It was never external. The alarm that goes off, the boss you don't respect, the commute that costs you, the job that doesn't fit, the city that feels like someone else's life. None of that is the real danger. The real danger is internal. It is the voice that says this is just how it is. It is the habit of overriding your own signal in the name of practicality. It is the slow, imperceptible accumulation of days where you chose the path of least resistance, and each choice was small enough that it didn't feel like a betrayal, but together they wrote a life that wasn't yours. The danger on Monday is the danger of becoming someone you didn't choose to be, one small compromise at a time. This is why you were warned. This is why this message found you today, whether you think that was chance or whether you feel what I feel, that it wasn't. Because you needed to be reminded of something you already know at a level deeper than thought. You needed someone to name the danger plainly so that you could see it, really see it, instead of half sensing it in the background of your days like a smell you can't quite place. You are the chosen one, not because the universe owes you anything, not because you are exempt from struggle, not because your path will be cleared and your obstacles will dissolve. You are the chosen one because you chose. Because somewhere, at some moment, maybe one you can name and maybe one lost to the fog of your earlier years, you chose to stay awake. You chose to keep feeling when feeling was painful. You chose to keep seeing when seeing was inconvenient. You chose to hold on to your vision even when everyone around you called it naive, even when the evidence seemed to be against you, even when you lay in the dark on a Sunday night dreading Monday and wondering whether any of it would ever actually come together. That choosing is not a one-time event, it is a practice. And Monday is where the practice happens, so here is what I want you to do. Not next Monday. Not when things are different, not when you feel ready, not when the conditions align and the timing is perfect and the fear subsides. This Monday, the one coming, the one you may already be dreading, the one that feels like a wall between you and who you want to be. Walk into it as yourself. Not the version of you that apologizes for taking up space. Not the version of you that has learned to make yourself palatable to people who are comfortable. Not the version of you that checks the highlight reel before you've even gotten out of bed and decides you're already losing. Walk into Monday as the full, unedited, uncompromising version of yourself, the one who sees what you see and feels what you feel and knows what you know. Because that version of you is not a liability. That version of you is the entire point. The world does not need more people who are good at navigating the system. The world has plenty of those. The world needs people who can see past the system to something real. People who can hold a vision under pressure, people who can stay human in circumstances designed to mechanize, people who can keep showing up even when showing up is hard, even when the results are not yet visible, even when the faith required is the kind that can't be explained to anyone watching from outside. That is you, that is what you are here for. And Monday, this Monday and every Monday is not an obstacle between you and that purpose. It is the arena in which that purpose is forged. The danger is real, the erasure is real, the comparison is real, the isolation is real, the compromise is real. All of it is real and all of it is gunning for you every single week when that alarm goes off and the week begins again. I am not telling you the danger isn't there. I am telling you that you already have everything you need to walk through it. You have been walking through it this whole time. You are still here, still seeing, still feeling the gap between what is and what could be, and that means the signal hasn't gone quiet. That means the chosen one in you is still alive. Don't let Monday take that. Don't let the weight of the week ahead, the smallness of the circumstances, the voices, external and internal, that say this is just how it is. Don't let any of it take that from you. You were chosen. You chose. Now go be that. The most powerful piece of writing you will ever read is the piece that makes you forget you are reading something written for millions of people and convinces you on a cellular level that it was written for you alone. That is not an accident, that is craft. Specifically, it is the craft of psychological mirroring, and when it is executed well, it is almost invisible, which is precisely what makes it so effective. Psychological mirroring in writing works on a simple but profound principle. People do not connect with content that describes them from the outside. They connect with content that speaks from the inside. The difference is everything. A description from the outside sounds like an observation. A voice from the inside sounds like recognition, and recognition is one of the most emotionally activating experiences a human being can have. When something names what you have been feeling but could not articulate, something in your nervous system relaxes and ignites at the same time. You feel simultaneously seen and energized. That feeling is what great motivational writing is engineered to produce. The technique begins with deliberate vagueness dressed as precision. Phrases like, if something inside you said yes, or you already know this at a level deeper than thought, feel extraordinarily specific, but they are actually constructed to be universally applicable. Almost every person reading those words will find a way to locate themselves inside them because the phrases are anchored in felt experience rather than concrete fact. They don't say what the thing is that said yes. They don't specify what the knowledge is that lives deeper than thought. They leave that blank intentionally because the reader's own mind will rush in to fill the gap with something real from their own life. The reader supplies the specificity, the writer supplies the frame, and because the reader filled it themselves, it feels personal, it feels true. It feels like the writer somehow knew. This is also why the script consistently uses the second person you, not people like you, not some individuals. The second person collapses the distance between the text and the reader entirely. It puts the reader inside the sentence as the subject, not the observer. Every you is a small act of direct address, and accumulated over thousands of words, those acts of address create something that feels less like reading and more like being spoken to by someone who genuinely knows you. The mirroring deepens further when the script names experiences that are almost universally felt but rarely publicly acknowledged. The Sunday night dread, the exhaustion of performing competence in rooms that don't fit, the grief of shrinking yourself to be acceptable. These are not exotic emotional states, they are common. But because they are rarely named directly, when writing does name them, the reader experiences a shock of recognition so strong it feels like intimacy. They think, this person understands something about me that most people in my life don't. And the moment a reader thinks that, they are no longer a passive audience, they are a believer. That is the full power of psychological mirroring. It doesn't describe your life. It reflects it back at you until you see yourself so clearly that you trust the hand holding the mirror completely. There is a move that the most sophisticated motivational writing makes, and it is so elegant that most people never see it happening even as it reshapes the way they understand their own lives. It takes everything that has made you feel small, insufficient, behind, broken, or wrong, and it turns those very things into the proof of your greatness. Not a consolation, not a reframe of last resort. A deliberate structural argument that says your pain is not evidence against you. Your pain is the credential. This is what it means to weaponize identity through weakness. And once you understand the mechanism, you will see it everywhere. The script does this from its very first movement. It does not begin by telling you what you are capable of or what you have achieved. It begins by naming what hurts, the Monday dread, the resistance that people around you call laziness but that you know is something else. The loneliness of carrying a vision that no one in your immediate life can fully hold with you. The exhaustion of performing normalcy in a life that doesn't fit. It names these things first, before it says anything about strength or potential or destiny, because it understands something critical about how human trust is built. You do not trust someone who leads with your strengths, you trust someone who leads with your wounds. Because your wounds are the thing you have been hiding, and the moment someone names them accurately, you feel known. And once you feel known, you will follow that voice almost anywhere it wants to take you. But here is where the weaponization begins in earnest. Having named the wounds, the script does not then say those wounds will heal, or that they will be overcome, or that one day you will look back on them from a place of safety and peace. It says something far more radical. It says the wounds are the evidence. The dread you feel on Monday is not a symptom of being broken. It is proof that you are awake in a world designed for sleeping people. The isolation you feel is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is the inevitable experience of someone operating at a frequency most people around them cannot receive. The gap between where you are and where you feel you should be is not evidence of failure. It is evidence that you can see farther than most people will ever see. Every single weakness is systematically converted into a badge, a mark of distinction, a sign of belonging to a category of people who are not ordinary. What makes this so psychologically potent is that it creates a closed loop the reader cannot exit through logic. If things are going well, that is evidence you are on the right path. If things are going badly, if you are struggling, suffering, confused, behind, that is also evidence you are on the right path. Because the path of the chosen one is hard. And hardness is the proof, not the contradiction of being chosen. The framework is self-sealing. There is no experience you can have that the framework will interpret as evidence against the identity it has constructed for you. Suffering confirms it, success confirms it, doubt confirms it, because only someone who truly carries something real would doubt themselves this deeply. The reader is enclosed inside an identity that has been made immune to disconfirmation. This is a profound rhetorical achievement, and it deserves to be understood clearly. Not because it is dishonest. The best versions of this move are not dishonest. They are simply strategic, but because understanding it reveals something important about how identity functions in human psychology. We do not hold our identities loosely, we defend them. And when a piece of writing gives you an identity that incorporates your pain rather than requiring you to overcome it, you will defend that identity with everything you have. Because the alternative, returning to a worldview in which your struggles are just struggles, your loneliness is just loneliness, your dread is just dread, with no larger meaning attached, feels unbearable by comparison. The weaponized identity is not just more flattering, it is more livable. And that is why it sticks. The deepest layer of this technique is what it does to the relationship between the reader and their own history. When weakness becomes weaponized identity, it retroactively redeems everything that came before. Every year you spent feeling out of place was preparation. Every relationship that couldn't hold the size of your vision was not a failure but a necessary clearing. Every Monday you survived without becoming someone you didn't choose to be was an act of resistance, an assertion of selfhood, a victory so quiet that no one around you could see it but that mattered enormously in the larger story of who you are becoming. The past is not rewritten as easy. It is rewritten as purposeful, and purposeful suffering is something human beings can bear in a way that meaningless suffering simply is not. That transformation from meaningless to meaningful, from wound to weapon, from weakness to the very evidence of your chosen nature, is what this technique ultimately delivers. It does not make your life easier, it makes your life legible. And for someone who has been living with the particular ache of feeling like nothing quite adds up, like the story of their life doesn't have a coherent arc yet, that legibility is not a small thing, it is everything. It is the difference between a life that is happening to you and a life you are living on purpose, even when, especially when, it is hard. That is the full architecture of weaponized identity. It is built from your own material. It is furnished with your own pain. And once you are inside it, it feels less like something someone constructed for you and more like something you always, on some level, already knew.